So I was watching the show 13 Reasons Why, and honestly, I'll tell you this much. This is gonna get really dark, but if I ever took my life, I think this would be one of my 13 reasons. And honestly, today's story does get really intense and really just embarrassing, so make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because seriously, it means a lot when you guys do. But what is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba, and welcome back to another insane story. So today's story takes place back when I was in middle school. It's my grade 7 year, and I remember I was just chilling, doing my own thing one time, walking down the hallway. And I remember when I was walking down the hallway, I was talking to a lot of my friends that were there. Well, friends in quotations, I'm gonna put it in, because honestly, a lot of these friends of mine aren't actually my friends anymore. But at the same time, it was middle school, so who really out there is still friends with their middle school friends? If you are still friends with your middle school friends, make sure you guys comment down below. But basically, I remember what I was doing was I was walking down the hallway with some friends, and basically what ended up happening was I ended up seeing my middle school crush in the hallway and got really shy. Now, I've talked a lot about my middle school crush on this channel, and one thing I gotta say is that no matter what, to this day, she's the most beautiful girl I've ever seen, other than my girlfriend. She's probably watching the video right now, so I love you, babe. Anyways, going on with the story though, I remember basically when I saw her in the hallway, I looked at her and kind of panicked. So I remember I ended up hiding behind my friend group and basically kept walking down the hallway. In any way, there was no way I was going to embarrass myself at all in front of this girl. There was no way I was gonna let her see my goofy, loser, uncool side that I had back in middle school. Now, one thing I will say is that I was really insecure in middle school, and don't get me wrong, I feel like a lot of middle schoolers feel this way. But one thing I will say is that if anything came up to me, my middle school crush, I always wanted her to think I was cool. Like, for example, I'd post photos of me going to car dealerships, sitting in the cars that were inside, and basically acting like it was my own car, and post it on Instagram back in the good old days. Very embarrassing, but I mean, let's be real, a lot of us have done that already. And I remember basically one time when I was going to my locker, my middle school crush ended up actually coming up to me. She came up to me and said, "Hey, I'm just curious. There's a new girl in our school, and like, I think she's like actually like kind of into you. I was just wondering, like, have you spoke to her?" Now, I found it really weird how my middle school crush decided to tell me about this new girl in school, and honestly, I totally just ignored her and said, "Oh, like, nah, like, I don't talk to her," acting like I'm playing the cool guy that doesn't actually want her, even though I'm basically begging to have her. And then she ended up telling me, "Okay, whatever," and she ended up walking away. I remember at that point, I remember one of my homies came up behind me and said, "Yo, bro, you ended up talking to her. What'd she say?" "She brought up another girl that likes me," is what I told him. And I remember my friend looked at me all weird saying, "All right, whatever." Anyways, going on, I remember I ended up going to my class that day that I had with my middle school crush and this new girl that ended up coming to our school. I remember she ended up entering the classroom when all the students were sat down, and the teacher walked up in front of the class and said, "Okay, class, so this is our new student. She is here from Romania, so everyone show love and respect, and yeah, take a seat." This girl instantly gets up, walks over to the seat that was empty that was right beside me, because I was sitting in the back of the classroom, and she sat down beside me and looked at me and stared me down and said, "So I was wondering, like, what's your name?" Hi, my name is Bubba," is what I said, and I ended up shaking her hand. I remember when I shook her hand though, my middle school crush looked at me and kind of stared at me kind of odd. Now, I had no idea why this happened, and honestly, like, it was super awkward. So I remember when I saw her looking at me, I basically refused to talk to the new girl in our class because I didn't want her to think that I had any intentions with her. Kind of a smart move, but at the same time kind of dumb. Anyways, later on throughout the class, I remember our teacher ended up handing out an assignment. It was an assignment that we had to do with partners, and basically we had to make a PowerPoint presentation on mythical creatures that, you know, were back then, like, you know, known as myths and stuff. So basically, I remember I ended up choosing my partner, which was one of my homies, but he already ended up finding a partner, so I ended up getting stuck looking around the classroom for a partner. Luckily for me, there was the new girl in our class that ended up walking up to me saying, "Oh, like, do you want to be my partner?" I guess," is what I said. And I remember I ended up becoming partners with this girl. So I remember when me and her were like working on the project and stuff, we ended up having to take it home because, well, I'm gonna be real with you guys, the project was a really big project. So I remember I ended up going home to my place and ended up inviting her over to my house to basically work on the project. And I remember as she came over, she was really excited to come over and stuff, and she was super weird. I remember when my mom opened the door for her, my mom ended up saying, "Oh, she's cute." And then basically the girl literally said, "Oh, like, yeah, like, I hope your son thinks so." Because I remember when I looked at her and said, "Why would you say that?" I ended up seeing the new girl that came to our class was literally wearing like a really cute dress. I found it super awkward and was hoping that this girl didn't think this was like a date or something. I don't know. I don't want her getting the wrong mindset. But basically, she ended up coming into my house and we ended up working in the living room doing our school project. And I remember as we were doing our school project, she kept asking me questions about the school. Like, for example, who's the worst teachers, you know, like who to stay away from, who to be on whose good side, how to get to the cafeteria lineup before anyone else gets there to get the cool ice cream. Okay, that was mostly something I knew, but you know, whatever. And basically, one thing led to another. She ended up popping a question that I did not expect her to ask. She ended up asking me, "Oh, like, just a question, do you have a crush on this girl?" girl. She ended up literally having a photo on her iPod and was legit a photo of basically my middle school crush. I remember I looked at the photo and said, I mean, yeah, like I liked her for a couple of years now. She was pretty cool. And me saying that, I remember she ended up moving her iPod away and looking at me, staring me deep in the eyes and said, why do you like her? Like, what's so good about her? I remember I looked at her and said, I don't know, like she's cute and I've had a crush on her for like the last 2 years. I remember this girl ended up saying, oh, like, then why didn't you like make your move? Because I couldn't is what I told her. And then I kept just working on the project. I remember this girl ended up getting really irritated that I said that and ended up slamming her hands on the table saying, why don't you like me instead? Like, I don't understand. Like, don't you think I'm cute as well? I ended up looking at her super awkwardly and saying, yeah, listen, like, I think you're cool and all, but like, I just don't like you like that. I only like my middle school crush. And also, we just met. I remember when I said that, she looked at me deep in the eyes and said, well, like, that doesn't mean anything. Yeah, it does, is what I told her afterwards. And for some reason, she wasn't taking no for an answer. To the point where I remember she got so mad, she ended up standing up and actually leaving my house without saying a word. I remember my mom actually walked into the conversation and just saw her leave. And my mom just looked at me saying, you know, she's maybe cute, but she's pretty psychotic, it seems. And ended up actually going back to the kitchen, making me a sandwich. Now, I thought this was just the end of the conversation and that's it. You know, like simple as that. Girl realizes I don't like her and I only like one woman, my middle school crush. But sadly, that wasn't the case. Things ended up going for the worse. I remember the next day when I ended up going to the classroom, we were basically getting ready to tell our presentations. And I remember basically for some reason, my partner was there, the new girl, but she kept looking at me in like a most devious way, as if she was going to do something really bad to me or my middle school crush. So I remember I ended up deciding to be the superhero here and basically tell my middle school crush before class started, hey, like, listen, I don't know what this girl's going to do, bro, but I'm just going to say, like, just stay away from her. I remember my middle school crush ended up looking at me saying, okay, I guess. And it ended up going back to her seat. And me, I ended up going back to my seat. And then my partner, aka the new girl in class, ended up walking into the room and sat down. At this point, everyone was doing the class presentations, talking about mythical creatures and stuff. And then one thing led to another. It was my turn. I ended up going up with the PowerPoint I ended up making because, you know, she ended up leaving halfway through while we were working on the project and basically started presenting it. And as I was presenting it, I remember this was the most worst moment ever. We were getting towards the end of the presentation and out of nowhere, this girl decides to come up behind me and pants me in front of my entire class. That is right. She literally showed my eggplant in front of my entire class because that day, for some reason, I decided to go commando to school. Listen, like I said earlier, I didn't make smart decisions in school and this was definitely one of them. I remember she looked at me right into my eyes and then afterwards looked down as we were both in swimsuits, and I am not joking, she noticed my eggplant was super bricked. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba and welcome back to a super embarrassing story. So today's story all takes place back when I was in middle school and this was my grade 7 year. Now I remember back in grade 7, I will say I think puberty was hitting the hardest at that moment. If you guys don't know what that means, well, you're probably too young to be watching this channel, but puberty was a big thing for me that I was hitting back when I was in grade 7. And I will say this much, it was not easy. Knowing that, you know, when guys hit puberty, we start getting bricked and stuff was a pain. And especially for girls, I understand you guys hitting puberty is actually super painful compared to us, but for us, it just gets super annoying because, well, when you have something you can't control, like your eggplant, it starts to really get annoying to the point where you get embarrassed every moment of your day where you can't even think straight. And I remember back in grade 7, this happened to me one time because in my grade 7 year, I remember I walked into my homeroom classroom. Now in homeroom, we were all basically sitting down at our desks and everything. And instantly our teacher walks up to the front of the class and says, okay, class, so I'm going to be handing you guys permission slips to go to the swimming pool. I hope you guys are all excited. This is going to be amazing. I remember when she said the swimming pool, I was like kind of like happy to be going swimming, but at the same time, I wasn't much of a swimmer back in grade 7. So obviously, you know, I was a little on the fence about it. But all the guys were all freaking out, being super excited because they all wanted to show off how they could jump from the highest diving board, which I don't understand how that's a flex. It's terrifying to jump off a diving board. But basically, all of them were just talking about, like, you know, going swimming and getting super excited. And when the guys were talking about getting excited, all the girls were as well. So me, I'd pretend to be excited as well with them and all this stuff. And while the teacher was handing out permission slips, I will say this, I knew that it was going to be my doom because, like I said, I was hitting puberty that time, and I knew that if I saw something I was even slightly attracted to, even if it was like a really attractive Grand Theft Auto character, I would get bricked. Yeah, it was like a superpower that I could not control. And I will say this, I basically kind of did not want to go swimming. So I remember heading home that day, I ended up walking up to my parents and I ended up basically hiding the permission slip into my backpack because I was just too scared to, you know, bring it up to them and be like, yeah, like, I don't want to go, because then it's going to go into the talks of, you know, the birds and the bees, which I do not want to talk about with them. Anyways, I remember the next day happened, and out of nowhere, I ended up seeing my mom come downstairs to my bedroom. And I remember as I was playing my Xbox, out of nowhere, my mom ended up going into my backpack for some reason, and she found the permission slip. My mom would usually check my backpack once in a blue moon because she doesn't want, you know, food to rot in there, because sometimes I would not eat the lunches that she would pack for me, so it makes sense why she was in there. But when she saw the permission slip, I remember she came downstairs and said, "Bubba, why aren't you going to the swimming pool? Why didn't you tell us about this?" "Oh, Mom, don't worry about it. I'm not much of a swimmer anyway." "Bubba, what do you mean? Your dad taught you how to swim." I'm good, Mom. I don't really want to swim, you know?" "Bubba, you're going swimming. The school wants you to go swimming, you go swimming." Okay, I'll go. I remember the next day happened, and I ended up handing in my permission slip, and I brought my swimsuit to school. And I will say this much, I realized how much I really did not want to go swimming once I got there. But I remember all the guys were super excited that, you know, we were all going swimming, and we all actually ended up heading over to the swimming pool. And I'm telling you this right now, when we got to the swimming pool, it was the most embarrassing thing ever. Because I remember once we got there, we all ended up heading straight to, you know, the change rooms. And when we got to the change rooms, I remember everyone started changing and, you know, getting into like their swimsuits. And honestly, in my mind, I was thinking, you know what? I should be able to handle this. I was trying to like basically make myself more brave, I guess, in a sense. And I am not joking when I say this. Once I got out of the change room and I saw my entire class at the pool and girls getting wet at the swimming pool, it instantly happened where I got bricked. Now, I got bricked so quick, and I remember I didn't know how I was supposed to, you know, make it calm down. So right away at that moment, I ended up looking around to see if I can see anything that would make this thing disappear. And I realized that there was a really big fat woman at the other side of the pool that was really disgusting looking. Not trying to fat shame anyone, but this woman was not attractive whatsoever to me. So I remember I would quickly look at her and it would go back down. So knowing that I had something to stare at when I was, you know, in panic was a good thing. So going on from there, me thinking I had a plan and everything and had like a whole idea sorted out that I was going to just keep staring at this woman was not the smartest thing, because I will say it got pretty creepy at some moments where I would get bricked and then instantly I would end up staring at this woman. This woman would look at me thinking, what in the world is this kid doing? But at the same time, the plan was working. Things were going okay. Everything was fine until it wasn't. Because I remember out of nowhere, there was a moment where one of the guys ended up walking up to me saying, "Yo, Bubba, all the guys want to play tag and some of the girls are playing. Do you want to play?" I remember from there, all of us started playing tag. And I will say this, it was super fun to play tag with everybody. But one thing I tried avoiding was tagging the girls. I never wanted to tag the girls because I didn't want to touch them, because I knew if I touched one of them, my puberty would hit and I would end up, you know, getting bricked. So I ended up just tagging the guys instead. And basically we had a really good time until there was one moment where I was on the edge of the pool and there was a girl that was basically, I guess, kind of attracted to me back when I was in middle school, and she wanted me to tag her outside of the pool. So all my friends were telling me to go tag that girl, and I was like kind of in panic because I didn't want to. Like, I'd rather swim another like 10 laps and tag another guy than tag her. But all the guys were peer pressuring me too, so I got up out of the wet pool with my swim shorts attached to my skin and I tagged her. And right as I tagged her, I ended up touching her right on the cherries. I tagged her on the cherries. I don't know why. It just ended up happening because she was like about to run. But honestly, I will say this, right as I did that, I remember this girl ends up looking at me and staring right into my eyes. And then she looks down and says, "Bubba, what's wrong with you?" I ended up being super confused saying, "Wait, why? What's wrong?" And then I looked down and I realized I was bricked. This girl caught me bricked. And it wasn't even like the hot girl from my school. It was just some like random chick. But since I ended up touching her cherries, I ended up getting super bricked. I don't know. It was so embarrassing and I was so nervous. And I remember from that moment, everyone was staring at me and I did not know what to do. I remember I started panicking even more and more and more. And it got to the point where I remember I ended up sprinting out of there and I started running on the pool deck. And instantly everyone started looking at me laughing. And as I was running, I remember one of the lifeguards says, "Hey, stop running at the pool." But I kept running. I went to the change rooms. I basically showered as fast as I could, got changed, and left. I left the pool and I walked home. I didn't even go back to school with my class. I went home, went to my bedroom, and started crying. Honestly, I will say this. It was so weird, and I remember the next day when I got to school, it was the talk of the century. But hey, what can I say? If you are hitting puberty and going through those hard moments, try your best not to get bricked, because, well, if you do, then you might relate to this, and you should fall for more embarrassing stories like this one. Today's story is something insane, and I cannot wait to tell you guys, because if you guys heard it here first, yes, yes, I became Santa at my school. Now, you guys are probably wondering how this happened, and honestly, it was one of the best moments of my life because having like over like 50 girls sit on my lap was the most insane thing ever. But today's story starts off back when I was in high school. This was my grade 12 year, the final year of me being in high school. And I remember I decided to join the leadership team. So if you guys don't know, in my school, we have a leadership club. Basically, it's like the leaders of the school that, you know, host events and stuff. And to be honest, the only reason I joined was because there was a lot of hot girls in there. And I won't lie, it seems like girls love having power in their hands, especially when it comes to the school. So I remember I also joined in because I wanted to feel some of that power. So obviously what I decided to do was I went up to the leadership club and, you know, I was sitting in there doing my own thing. And then afterwards, the teacher, the main like teacher of the leadership club, ended up coming up to us all and ended up saying, okay, guys, so this year, since it's the holidays, we're going to be making a Santa meet and greet. So who here wants to be Santa Claus? Now, obviously at first, most of the girls in my leadership club didn't want to do it because obviously what girl would want to be Santa? So I remember I decided that I could be Santa because I was like one of the 3 guys that was willing to do it. Don't get me wrong. We also had another guy in the leadership club, but he was like, I think he was gay. I'm not sure, to be honest. I don't know. In some way, he just didn't feel comfortable with a bunch of girls sitting on his lap. And then the other one, well, he, let's just say, didn't want to be Santa. Anyway, sorry, going on with the story, I remember basically I decided to go up and say I don't mind being Santa. And I ended up telling my teachers that, and all the girls got really excited. I remember all the girls were like, oh my goodness, like we're gonna make him have like a white beard, and then like, oh my goodness, we're gonna dress him in all red, and we're gonna make you carry like a sack. Great, I already carry a sack. I have to carry another one. Bad joke, but you guys know what I mean. Anyways, going on with the story, I remember basically we ended up going to the gym and we got everything set up. We got the cool chair, we got the cameras, we got the lighting, we got also the really cool Christmas decorations that were all over the place. And then I remember these girls that were in my leadership club ended up filling a sack full of candy canes. Apparently, after every student sat on my lap, they would have to get a candy cane from me. I have no idea why, but it is what it is. Anyways, afterwards, I remember when the gym was fully decorated, that same day, I had to go put on a Santa costume. So I remember I ended up basically going into the change room, putting this thing on, and boy, did I look dumb. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not the most charming guy, but to put me on a Santa costume, I don't know, man. It just did not suit well with me, which is funny because it's Santa's suit. I don't know. It's weird, but at the same time, I did it anyways. And then afterwards, after I got the Santa suit on, I remember I went out and I basically showed the girls, like, you know, how it looked. And all of them liked it, but they said it needed one more thing. I ended up getting a pillow shoved under my shirt, and basically, I became a fatter Santa. Because, you know, what Santa isn't fat? Like, let's be real here. You can't have a slim Santa. What is this? Jack Skellington? So anyways, I remember after that, I ended up going to the gym and it was lunchtime. Right as I was walking in from the change room going into that place, I remember seeing so many people lining up to go see Santa, aka me. I remember I went in there and I sat down, and the amount of people in that lineup was like basically half of the entire school. And I have a big school, by the way. Like, I went to a school with like over 5,000 students. Kind of insane. So I remember I ended up going in there. When I did, I sat down and basically I waited. The lineup started coming into the gym, and basically from there, I remember I was basically sitting there for like 2 hours, basically getting ready to meet people. But the thing was, that was really weird about being Santa, was that there was more girls lining up to meet me than actual guys, which, I mean, I'm not complaining. That's a good thing in my mind. But at the same time, you gotta understand this. Back when I was in high school, girls would wear booty shorts. And don't get me wrong, I love, you know, a good pair of peaches. You know, like, it's a W. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not complaining. But when a bunch of girls wear tight leggings and booty shorts and they're lining up and they're gonna be sitting on my lap, well, you already know what's gonna happen, boys, okay? So basically, I remember I was sitting there and basically a girl would walk up and she would sit on my lap with her booty shorts. And instantly, I'm not gonna lie, I got bricked. Yeah, like, no joke. After the third girl came and sat on my lap, I got seriously bricked because this girl had a massive, and I mean massive, cherries. So me being bricked as Santa Claus, I remember basically I would have like a bunch of these like girls just come down, sit on my lap, and tell me what they wanted for Christmas. It was actually really funny because a girl at one time actually came up to me and sat on my lap and she said, so this is gonna be a weird one, but I know it's you, Bubba, and I just want to say I would love for you to use a vibrator on me. Like, whoa, chill out, is what I told her afterwards. And then she ended up standing up, taking the photo, and dipping. Yeah, it was super awkward because a lot of these girls were being super weird and stuff, but at the same time, it was actually pretty funny. And the worst part was that I was bricked for like a whole 2 hours, and knowing I couldn't beat my stuff, you know, as Santa would be weird. You know what I mean? Like, I can't do that. So I was basically sitting there for 2 hours being bricked and basically trying to figure out what would be my next move. Anyways, going on with the story, I remember more girls started coming in and coming into the lineup and and stuff, and it just kept going and going and going. But this is where things got really funny, because at like, I think like the 50th person mark, we ended up like basically taking a break. So I remember I went to the change room and I was sweating. Like I was actually sweating a lot. And I remember I started like kind of going into the bathroom and I tried to take a waz. Now, boys, if you guys know this, you guys will know this. Girls probably won't understand this, but when you are bricked and trying to take a waz, it is like burning fire. Like it is like you are shooting a flamethrower. And it hurt so much to the point where I couldn't do it. So I ended up just saying, whatever, putting my pants back on, going back into that Santa costume and basically sitting down, still bricked for another, like, I think hour or so. Yeah, crazy to me. And it was so weird too, because our lunch was only like an hour and a half. So knowing I stayed there for like 3 hours more, like kids were skipping school just to sit on my lap. Now, don't get me wrong. Usually boys don't get bricked up for that long, but I'm gonna tell you this. My main thing that I was like realizing was that I would like basically think about my grandma when no one was sitting on my lap just to calm it down. And then a girl would come and sit on me and then boom, obviously I would come back up. And then there would be those times where a person would come and sit on my lap and it was like some dude or just someone I'm purely not attracted to. And I would basically like start to calm down. And then of course the cheerleading squad had to come in and all take a photo with me. And one at a time, they all sat on my lap. Yeah, kind of insane. I remember it got super intense. And then afterwards, there was this one more last person. This girl was the hottest girl on the cheer team that sat on my lap. It was the last person apparently. And I was ready to just leave at that point. Cause you know, I didn't want to be bricked up forever. I remember she sat on my lap. She sat directly in the middle of my lap where my eggplant was clearly chilling. And no joke when I say this, she sat down and she felt it. She felt it. And the thing that sucked was I thought the pillow would kind of help out knowing it was like near there as well. But the pillow didn't help. The pillow literally like ended up moving to the side a bit. So it's like more on my side of my stomach. And she felt that I was bricked. She instantly stood up right after. And then she looked at me, smiled, and then sat back down saying, "This is a cozy seat, Santa." Bruh, what? I thought this girl had like a Santa kink. I'm not gonna lie to you. But it was super weird. And then afterwards, I remember we took the picture and everything. And then I stood up getting ready to leave. And I went to the change room. When I went to the change room, I remember I basically started taking everything off because, you know, I was boiling in that. I was sweating like crazy in there. Like I was sweating more than a sinner at church. And then right as I take it off, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, a girl ended up literally walking into the change room. And it was the same cheerleader that I talked to earlier. And no joke when I say this was the most weirdest thing ever as well. She ended up coming in there, going on her knees. And yeah, I think you guys know the rest. Let's just say we ended up doing the devil's tango in the change room when I was sweating balls. Yeah, it was super weird and super awkward. But at the same time, I wasn't really complaining because she was like the hotter girl in the cheer team. And yeah, let's just say she ended up helping me out and basically getting rid of my massive eggplant. I mean, all I can say was that, you know, I guess I got her present for Christmas. Anyways, guys, that's basically it for today's story. Make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And like I always say, follow for more embarrassing stories. And also join the Discord. Peace out, guys.